Welcome to SpreadLove in Organizations, the healthcare leadership podcast where we explore leadership with purpose. I'm Naji, your host, and I have the pleasure today to be sitting with two leaders who've spent decades navigating one of the world's most complex industries, my industry, biotech and pharma. Jean-Noël Pellegrin and Alain Eudaric aren't just strategists or deal makers, they're connectors of purpose, people, and innovation. It is really great to have you both with me today. Alain, you've earned the reputation of a strategist across borders, advising biopharma leaders on growth, integration, and innovation across markets. Before launching idea pathways and shaping decisions from the consulting side, what first drew you into the space?
Thanks, Naji. Thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here. So, what first drew me in? Honestly, I did not set out thinking I'd end up advising biotech and pharma companies around the world. My background is in engineering, and I've always been fascinated by how things work, especially when it comes to complex and cutting-edge systems. But what really hooked me into the biopharma space was seeing how people, science, and business come together in this industry. There was a time in my career where I worked first for a global life sciences instrumentation company, and then for a global pharma services organization. I've been part of incredibly smart teams trying to bring real innovation to life. But I also saw how often great ideas struggled, not because of the science, but because of misalignment between strategy, execution, and what the market actually needed. That disconnect really stuck with me. And that experience is actually the one that shaped everything I've done since. I founded Idea Pathways to help biotech and pharma teams navigate that complexity, whether it's building strategy, scaling across geographies, working through a deal, or unlocking value that gets stuck in silos. I found that most challenges come down to two things: clarity and follow-through.
Well, thanks so much, Alain, for this. I can only agree that it's a need. And I'm sure, Jean-Noël, you'll go through this too later on with your book. But you've spent 2 decades, Jean-Noël, shaping biopharma deals from the inside, building valuation models, structuring transactions, and guiding M&A or business development decisions at Sanofi and beyond. But before the spreadsheets and strategic negotiations, what really first brought you into this work?
Yeah, thanks, Naji, and thank you for having me. I started my career at E&Y in Paris before stepping into CFO roles across diverse companies like Renault, IBM. But it has been my 19 years or so at Sanofi where I really found my passion for unlocking value in life sciences. What excites me most in working side by side with engineers and scientists to build forecasts and business cases that bring innovative ideas close to reality. This is what we want, in fact. At Sanofi, I've been deeply involved in hundreds of licensing deals, partnerships, and M&A projects, always fully embedded in the project teams and collectively driving forward. So these international cross-functional collaborations across multiple therapeutic areas have been eye-opening. I have seen how finance is not just about numbers, it's about shaping decisions. A project can get a swift no if the value is not there. And that puts a real responsibility on us to work closely with R&D, commercial, business development teams to thoroughly evaluate every opportunity. That's where we can have a real value be unlocked for a project.
I love this. You said something, bringing innovation into reality. I think this is what we do here in pharma and biotech, and ultimately bringing life-changing innovations for patients into reality. Alain and I first connected while working with entrepreneurs, helping them really shape kind of their venture, navigate the leap from science to strategy to seeing this, what Jean-Noël said, like this opportunity, getting it to patients. Was there a moment in those conversations or collaborations that sparked the idea for this great book, The Thriving Biopharma Business?
Definitely. Early on, I spent a lot of time, as you said, coaching biotech startups and listening to many pitches from scientific entrepreneurs. And what stood out was how often the feedback I gave circled back to similar core themes. Those included clearly defining the company purpose, understanding the problems that they were solving and for whom, articulating why their solution made sense in the current market, and demonstrating a sustainable business model with strong financials and investment plans. It also involved explaining their unique position against their competition, showing why their team was the right one to make it happen. And after a while, I found myself looking for a book I could confidently recommend to these founders. Something practical, something insightful, something tailored to their unique challenges. However, surprisingly, I could not find a resource that really hit the mark in that respect. So that's when we started thinking maybe we should write that book. And I shared that idea with Jean-Noël at the time, was equally passionate about helping biotech leaders thrive. So together we decided to take that leap and put those real-world lessons into a practical guide, which is that book. So next step for us was to find the right publishing partner. And we are fortunate that Teller and Francis at the time quickly saw the value in our proposal. And their support gave us the confidence. The platform turned those insights into The Thriving Biopharma Business, which is really a book directly born from the front line of biotech entrepreneurship. We wrote it for leaders who want a practical guide to building and growing companies in this space. It's packed with real-world examples, frameworks, and lessons learned from the field.
And it is a great book for those in the industry, as you shared. And Jean-Noël, you have also a full-time job like Alain. Writing a book is never a small undertaking, especially when you're trying to do this in an industry complex like biopharma, and really spanning from strategy, finance, leadership. How did you and Alain decide to take this on together? And what made this collaboration kind of click?
Yes, in fact, what Alain described really resonated with me. While he was hearing similar themes around purpose, market fit, business models, also on my side, those challenges on the finance and deal-making side. I noticed of how many talented scientists struggled to frame their innovations in terms of value creation, investor expectations, or deal structures. These gaps often created barriers to growth, even when the science was solid. That's when it clicked for us. By combining Alain's deep strategy and operational insight with my experience in finance, valuation, and deal making in a big pharma context, we could offer a more complete picture. Our skills completed each other perfectly. Together, we decided to turn our shared observations into a practical guide that helps biotech leaders move beyond just the science and build companies that can attract investment and scale effectively. And this collaboration allowed us to bring different but equally essential perspectives to the book, ensuring it speaks directly to the diverse challenges biotech entrepreneurs face every day.
So I love that because it's already kind of cross-collaboration on the different really capabilities, expertise that you both bring. So I'd love now to go and dig a little bit more into the insights of the book and what you're sharing. So one of the things is those strategic pivots that can really define companies' future, and we see it quite a bit in biopharma early beginning. Can you walk us through one that stands out and a leadership mindset that really turned uncertainty that we live daily in this industry into momentum?
Sure. one strategic pivot that stood out for me really in biopharma is Moderna's bold decision to focus entirely on mRNA vaccines during the COVID-19 pandemic. It's an example that people know well. At a time when mRNA was still an emerging and somewhat unproven technology, CEO Stéphane Bancel and his leadership team leaned into relentless curiosity and took really calculated risk to rapidly develop a vaccine that would reshape global health. And this pivot perfectly illustrated a key theme from chapter 4 in our book, The Thriving Biopharma Business. Great outcomes demand more than science. You need the ability to set strategy in a disciplined way while remaining flexible. You need to provide a clear vision. And finally, you need decisive leaders. That's how you turn uncertainty into opportunity. Instead of simply reacting, Moderna's leadership was able to follow a clear mRNA roadmap with careful market priorities. They stayed nimble and struck a balance between bold innovation and solid planning, in my view. I believe that greatly helped them move fast, make a real impact, and build lasting value for the company.
That's a great example. And certainly you're ending on value creation, right? For the company, for the society, for shareholders and all stakeholders, basically. And really like the valuation in pharma and biotech is a complex piece. So Jean-Noël, you're one of the experts on those things. Can you share with us a little bit your thoughts on value creation in our industry?
Yes. In fact, with experience, you can see that your point about valuation transcending pure financials is particularly insightful. I would like to illustrate it with two stories, two acquisition stories. The first was with a mid-stage biopharma company. They had this exciting therapeutic that has been on the market for about 3 years, but it was still, in a critical commercial ramp-up, where every quarter matters, and the sales team is building a momentum and valuable experience. The temptation for as an acquiring company is to come in and start aligning all the processes, integrating all systems, and to just standardize everything from day one. But we realized that in this case, if we disrupted their commercial momentum, we would essentially be destroying the very value we paid for. So our leadership team made a very conscious decision to give their commercial organization significant autonomy. They maintained their sales structure and preserved their go-to-market approach. So we made sure the team felt valued and included rather than lost in a very large organization like a big pharma. So we had to resist the urge to standardize. So that it was a restraint in preserving their commercial operations, and which proved essential to maintain their operational performance and at the same time reach our financial targets after the deal closed. So this case was, I have another case where with a small startup with maybe 15 people, they had a breakthrough technology at a very early development. This was a completely different challenge, dealing with a brilliant team of scientists. So there was no way to roll them into our process-heavy, standard big pharma approach. So it would simply have killed the innovation potential they were building. So, in fact, here again, our leadership had to resist the urge to integrate everything immediately. So we preserved the innovation ecosystem they had built while ensuring adequate, albeit minimal, corporate requirements. This took real emotional intelligence, pragmatic judgment, I would say, on the part of the executive team. So in both these situations, the financial models look great on paper, but the real value creation came down to the leadership team having the business instincts to hold back, to know when to preserve and protect the key value drivers, and when to align with the broader corporate goals.
These are really great framings, actually, as we think about those, like from what makes sense on paper, you're bringing it back to something that is very close to my heart, which is leadership, the instinct to make sure that things are well integrated. You even said the urge, resist the urge to integrate immediately. So all those pieces comes back to the beauty of what we do, right? Like it's people, it's humans, and how we interact and think about these problems. And if I go a step backwards before you get into those M&As or deals and partnerships between pharma biotechs, the pitches themselves, like how do they pitch to you? How do they tell you the story? Does storytelling even play a role in a data and science-driven industry? So I'm intrigued. Alain, you've seen several of those. Is there like a most unforgettable pitch that you've witnessed, and how did it connect with decision makers at a human level to make the deal?
So Naji, I'm really glad you asked this question. This is something I'm really passionate about. You literally stumble upon one of my soapboxes. The ability to tell stories and pitch is so important that we opened the Thriving Biopharma Business with a section titled The Importance of Stories Over Data. And we even dedicated an entire chapter 6, to helping leaders craft strong pitches that speak to their audiences. In there, we cover how to structure a pitch, we consider cultural context, we anticipate questions, how to leave a lasting impression. And as you said, in biopharma, a great pitch is not just about what you know, it's about helping others believe in what is possible. The most effective pitches I've seen or I've witnessed combine three elements, in my view: logic, emotion, and trust. And those need to be packaged into a coherent and compelling package. This is something we illustrate in detail at the beginning of our book. And while logic is the default language of science, using clinical trial results, statistical data, technical analysis, emotions do connect us on a more universal level, often through inspirational patient stories. And trust is built through credible references, key opinion leaders, and a clear articulation of the unmet needs and potential impact. And to come back to your original question, maybe one of the most memorable examples I've seen was Vertex Pharmaceuticals during the lead up to Trikafta. The clinical results there were strong. It was a therapy that could benefit about 90% of people with cystic fibrosis. They were tackling genetics for the first time at an incredible scale. But what made their pitch resonate with me at the time was how they brought the science to life through the voice of patients and families. In one widely shared story, for instance, you saw a mother of a 10-year-old patient that described what the treatment meant to her. She said it lifted a weight she had been carrying since her son's diagnosis. For the first time, she could picture him growing up with healthy lungs. And that moment really stayed with me. When you pair a story like that with solid data and a clear market need, the message does stick. And it worked. Trikafta became a commercial success. It drove significant revenue growth for the company. It reshaped expectations in rare disease drug development. But it started with a pitch that made people care and believe before they even had time to analyze the numbers.
Yeah, I certainly relate to that. I'm now in the rare disease space, and really, when you hear those powerful story of patients and how those drugs can transform their lives, make you wake up every morning, but also make the story more compelling, backed with data, as you said. I'm gonna now move to a place where I'll give you a word, and I would love for you to react to it. The first one is leadership.
So maybe I'll take the lead on this one. So leadership for me is integrative leadership. And by that, I mean a leadership style that brings together diverse perspectives across science, across regulatory, across commercial functions, geographies, and more. It's really about connecting the dots across disciplines and teams to create real alignment and fuel innovation. In the Thriving Biopharma Business, we emphasize how this approach can really unlock values for companies. Leaders who create open collaborations between R&D, regulatory, commercial, and external stakeholders build the kind of ecosystem where complex challenges are addressed from multiple angles. And that alignment speeds up decision making, it avoids duplication, it drives innovation that delivers for patients. This approach becomes especially powerful, in my view, during complex strategic decisions. In the book, for instance, we explore, in the case of Roche, a 2022 partnership with a small biotech to develop a new cancer treatment targeting tough-to-treat mutations. And we analyze that deal through four key lenses: financial, market, competition, and operations. In the case of financials, we need to ask whether the structure of the deal generates sufficient value. How does it compare to other options with similar risk? Does it reflect the funding environment that most biopharma companies face in practice today? From a market perspective, we need to evaluate how attractive this particular segment is, how challenging market access might be, how complex the regulatory landscape might be, and whether the opportunity really fits the company's capabilities. On the competition side, it's all about how the deal leverages differentiated and unique company strength, how it secures freedom to operate from an IP perspective, how it positions the therapy to stand out within a crowded and fast-moving field. Operationally, the review considers access to the right expertise, something critical nowadays, whether manufacturing capabilities will be available in a timely fashion, and whether the supply chain can hold up under pressure. That kind of resilience to disruption is something the industry has paid, as you know, closer attention to since the pandemic. And by looking at those four dimensions across, this is a kind of integrative analysis, integrative leadership that brings clarity to complex partnerships and help companies move forward with confidence and speed, even in high stakes, high uncertainty environments.
I love this concept of integrative leadership. What about resilience?
So I guess I'll take that one on. So I actually have the perfect answer for this, and there is something that has anchored me during turbulent times, and it's actually a poem, believe it or not. It's titled If by Rudyard Kipling. It is 32 lines of resilience, humility, and focus under pressure. And my father gave it to me in French when I was a kid growing up in Paris, and it's really anchored me ever since.
Well, Alain, I need to add that on the page, actually. So I'll have to read it and translate it and add it on the page. I love it. The last word I always ask my guests is spread love in organization.
So thank you, Naji, for mentioning this. I think this is one of the passions, the underlying passions in that's pretty much structural in the industry for many entrepreneurs and many executives in biotech, and that's actually something we acknowledge in the beginning of the book. And I would like to again take the opportunity to, on behalf of both of us, to thank all those leaders in the industry for their passion, for sharing that love, and for their commitment to making the world a better place and developing new therapies. So that to me is a given building block for the industry.
Any final word of wisdom, Jean-Noël and Alain, for healthcare leaders around the world?
I would say clearly articulate the value proposition your technology or leader set will bring to attract investor interest. Because investors see clear, compelling narratives that demonstrate both scientific promise and commercial viability.
Naji, one thing I do hope listener take away from today's discussion is the vital role of relentless curiosity in driving innovation, and now combining that with strong storytelling capabilities, financial savviness, and calculated risk taking can really unlock value in the industry. And these are insights we explore deeply in our upcoming book, The Thriving Biopharma Business. So stay tuned for more insight there.
Love it. These are great charges and bits of wisdoms for us to think of as leaders in healthcare. Thank you both, Alain and Jean-Noël, for being with me today. Thanks for listening to the show. For more episodes, make sure to subscribe to SpreadLoveIO.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Let's inspire change together and make a positive impact in healthcare, one story at a time.